The chamber was enormous, a sphere of polished metal floating in the void of space. Inside, representatives from 23 different species sat in their designated sections, each area designed for their unique biology. Some breathed methane, others required high gravity, and a few existed partially out of phase with normal reality. The Galactic Council had stood for 10,000 years, maintaining peace and order across countless star systems. Ambassador Minji stood in the human section, her hands clasped behind her back. She wore the simple gray uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, and her face remained calm even as she felt the weight of every alien gaze upon her. Around her, the council members whispered among themselves in languages that sounded like grinding rocks, singing crystals and electronic pulses. The council speaker, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline shell, raised what passed for its hand. The chamber fell silent. We gathered today to address the matter of humanity. Its voice echoed through translators built into every seat. For 2 decades, humans have spread across the galaxy at an unprecedented rate. They have claimed 40 systems. They have established colonies without permission. They refuse to accept the guidance of this council. Minji took a breath. She had prepared for this moment. Honored Council, humanity has followed every colonization law. We've only settled uninhabited systems. We've traded fairly with all species. We ask only for the same rights and freedoms you grant to others. A massive insectoid creature rose from its section. Brethik, the supreme military commander of the Council's forces, stood 3 meters tall with armor plating that gleamed like oil. His compound eyes fixed on Minji with clear contempt. Rights? You speak of rights? Your species learned to travel between stars only 50 years ago. You are children playing with tools you barely understand. Children must be taught their place. Several council members made sounds of agreement. Minji felt her jaw tighten, but she kept her voice steady. We may be young compared to your civilizations, but we've proven ourselves capable. We've shared our technology. We've contributed to galactic science and culture. We deserve a seat at this table, not orders from above. Deserve? Vrethik's mandibles clicked together in what might have been laughter. Your presence alone disturbs the natural order. You breed too quickly. You adapt too fast. You take risks that endanger not just yourselves, but everyone around you. The Council has observed your species carefully, and we have concluded that humanity represents a threat to galactic stability. Minji's heart hammered in her chest. A threat? We've never attacked anyone. We've never threatened any Council world. What threat do we pose? The crystalline speaker pulsed with light. The threat of chaos. The threat of disruption. For 10,000 years, the galaxy has known peace under Council guidance. Species expand at measured rates. Technology advances through controlled sharing. Resources are distributed according to established hierarchies. Humanity rejects all of this. You want to grow without limits. You want to choose your own path. This cannot be allowed. You're asking us to stop being human, Minji said quietly. You're asking us to abandon everything that makes us who we are. We are asking you to conform, Brethik stated. And if you will not conform, then you must be contained. The Council has debated this matter for months. Today, we vote. Will humanity accept restricted status, limited to your current 40 systems with no further expansion? Or will you face the consequences of your defiance? Minji looked around the chamber at all those alien faces. Some looked sympathetic. Most looked indifferent. A few looked eager. She had argued humanity's case for weeks, meeting with individual council members, making appeals, offering compromises. None of it had mattered. The decision had already been made. And if we refuse these restrictions? She asked, though she already knew the answer. Then the Council will enforce them, Brethik said simply. "We are prepared to take military action if necessary. Your species will learn its place, one way or another." The vote began. One by one, council members registered their decision through the crystal terminals in front of them. Minji watched the display above the speaker's platform. Red lights appeared, one after another, each representing a vote for military action against humanity. Not a single green light appeared. 23 species speaking with one voice. War. The speaker's voice rang out across the chamber. By unanimous decision, the Galactic Council declares humanity to be in violation of galactic peace. Economic sanctions begin immediately. Military forces are authorized to enforce restricted zones around human space. If humanity does not withdraw to designated systems within 30 standard days, Council forces will engage and dismantle human colonies by force. This session is concluded. Minji stood frozen as alien delegates began filing out of the chamber. Some avoided looking at her. Others stared with what might have been pity or curiosity. Brethik approached, his massive form casting a shadow over her. "You should advise your leaders to surrender peacefully," he said. "My forces number in the thousands of ships. Your species has what, perhaps 200 warships. Resistance would be foolish and costly. Accept your place, and many lives will be spared." Minji met his compound eyes without flinching. "You've made a mistake today. A terrible mistake. You've mistaken patience for weakness. You've mistaken diplomacy for fear. You don't understand what humans are capable of when we're pushed into a corner. Is that a threat?" Brethik's mandibles twitched. "It's a warning. One you'll remember." Minji walked out of the chamber with her head high. Behind her, she heard council members laughing. They thought she was bluffing. They thought humanity would crumble under the weight of galactic opposition. They had no idea what was waiting for them. Aboard the flagship Indomitable, hidden in the dark space beyond human colonies, Admiral Taiyang received Ambassador Minji's encrypted message. 3 words appeared on his screen. Council declares war. Taiyang leaned back in his command chair, surrounded by holographic displays showing the positions of every human vessel in the fleet. Around him, officers worked quietly at their stations. The bridge hummed with controlled energy. "Communications," Taiyang said calmly. "Activate Protocol Nightfall. Send the authorization codes to all fleet commanders. Tell them it's time." The communications officer's hands moved across her console. "Protocol Nightfall activated, sir. All ships are receiving the signal. They're requesting confirmation." "Confirmed. Execute immediately." Across human space, on hundreds of ships and dozens of colonies, people opened sealed orders that had been waiting for years. Scientists began powering up experimental systems. Engineers activated hidden weapons. Soldiers boarded shuttles, heading to classified locations. Every human in the fleet had trained for this moment, had prepared for the day when the galaxy would finally show its true face. On Earth, deep beneath the surface in a laboratory that officially didn't exist, Dr. Hyen watched numbers scroll across dozens of screens. The calculations were complete. Project Ouroboros was ready. She typed a message into her terminal, her fingers steady despite the magnitude of what she was unleashing. "The serpent is ready to bite." She pressed send and sat back in her chair. Around her, the machines hummed with barely contained power. Technology that bent the laws of physics. Weapons that could rewrite reality itself. Humanity's last resort, now their first strike. The galaxy had declared war on humanity. They thought they were crushing a primitive upstart species. They thought this would be quick and easy. They had no idea that humanity had been preparing for this war since the day they first met the Galactic Council. They didn't know about the hidden fleets, the secret weapons, the strategies developed by military minds that had studied warfare for thousands of years. The Council was about to learn a hard lesson. Humanity didn't survive by being the strongest or smartest. Humanity survived by being too stubborn to die and too clever to fight fair. War had been declared, and the galaxy had just made the worst mistake in its 10,000-year history. The Galactic Armada assembled in the void between stars, a sight that would have terrified any species in the galaxy. Over 10,000 warships gathered in formation, representing the combined military might of 12 different civilizations. Some ships were organic, grown rather than built. Others were pure geometric shapes that hurt to look at directly. The largest vessels stretched kilometers in length, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Rethik stood on the bridge of his command dreadnought, the pride of Council. Through the massive view screen, he watched his fleet organize itself into attack formations. Each species had their own tactics, their own strengths, but together they were unstoppable. He had fought in 3 major wars during his long life. This would be his easiest victory. Supreme Commander, one of his officers reported, "All fleet elements are ready. Jump coordinates are locked on the human home system. We await your order." Rethik felt satisfaction ripple through his body. Humans had chosen defiance. Now they would learn the price. Begin the jump. All ships, execute on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. The Armada vanished in a flash of distorted space, traveling faster than light toward humanity's heart. They emerged from their jump at the edge of the Sol system, expecting to find human defenses desperately trying to protect their homeworld. Instead, they found nothing. The screen showed empty space where human colonies should have been. Mars, once home to 5 million humans, showed no life signs. The orbital stations around Earth were dark and cold. Even Earth itself seemed strangely quiet, its cities powered down to minimum levels. Where are they? One of Rethik's subordinates asked, confusion clear in its translated voice. Scanning, another officer reported. Detecting some automated defense platforms near the outer planets. No capital ships. No carriers. The human fleet appears to have left. Rethik felt a flicker of uncertainty, but he pushed it aside. They've run. They know they cannot fight us, so they've evacuated their worlds and fled into deep space. Cowards. He turned to his tactical officer. Destroy the defense platforms. Secure all human worlds. Send out scout ships to search for their fleet. The Armada spread out across the Sol system. The automated defense platforms put up a fight, firing missiles and energy beams, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Within an hour, every human defensive position had been neutralized. Council ships began landing on Earth, Mars, and the colonies, claiming them in the name of Galactic Order. Rethik sent his report back to the Council. Human space secured. Enemy fleet in retreat. Pursuing to complete victory. The Council responded with celebration. The war was already over, they said. Humanity had been broken without even putting up a real fight, but far beyond Pluto in the dark cold of the outer solar system. Captain G1 sat in the command chair of the Ghost of Terra. Her ship was one of 20 stealth carriers, invisible to almost every kind of sensor the galaxy possessed. Around her, the bridge crew worked in near silence, watching the Council fleet spread itself thin across human space. They took the bait, Ji-won said quietly. She had a sharp face and sharper eyes that missed nothing. How long until they're fully committed? Her tactical officer studied the displays. Another 10 minutes. They're landing troops on 3 planets and sending scout groups into the asteroid belt. Formation is completely scattered. Ji-won nodded. The plan was working perfectly. Let them think humans had run away. Let them feel safe. Let them drop their guard. Prepare the fleet. All ships report ready status. Across the dark spaces of the solar system, thousands of human vessels waited. They hung in the shadows of asteroids, behind moons, in the cold depths where no one thought to look. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers, and ships of designs the Council had never seen. Each one painted in adaptive camouflage. Each one running silent. Each one waiting for the signal. "All ships report ready," the communications officer said. "They're waiting for your order, Captain." G1 took a breath. This was it. The moment that would decide humanity's future. If the plan failed, Earth would burn. If it succeeded, the galaxy would never underestimate humans again. Send the message. Light them up. Across the solar system, thousands of human ships activated simultaneously. Their camouflage dropped away. Their engines flared to life. Their weapons powered up. The Council fleet, spread thin and celebrating their easy victory, suddenly found themselves surrounded. Admiral Taiyang's voice boomed across every Council communication channel. "Attention, Council forces. This is Admiral Taiyang of the Human Defense Fleet. You wanted war. You came to our home to destroy us. But you made a mistake. You should have studied what humans do best. We don't fight fair. We fight to win." The Battle of Seoul began. Human ships moved like nothing the Council had ever encountered. Their new jump drives let them teleport short distances instantly, appearing behind enemy vessels before they could react. Their weapons were strange and terrible. Railguns that fired projectiles at relativistic speeds. Plasma lances that burned through shields. Missiles that thought for themselves and hunted their targets with mechanical patience. But more than their weapons, it was their tactics that shocked the Council fleet. Humans didn't form neat battle lines. They swarmed. They ambushed. They coordinated attacks with a precision that seemed impossible. 3 human ships would focus fire on a single Council vessel, overwhelming its defenses in seconds, then vanish before reinforcements could arrive. Rethik watched in growing horror as his fleet died around him. Ships that had served for centuries exploded in balls of fire. Entire squadrons went silent, destroyed before they could even send distress signals. His perfect formation collapsed into chaos as captains tried desperately to regroup, to find enemies that appeared and disappeared like ghosts. "Return fire," Rethik roared. "All ships, weapons free. Kill them." The Council fleet fought back with everything they had. Their numbers were still superior. Their weapons still deadly. Space filled with energy beams and explosions. Ships on both sides died, vaporized in nuclear fire or torn apart by weapons fire. But for every human ship destroyed, 3 Council vessels fell. Captain G1 led her carrier group in a devastating strike against the Council's support ships. The huge supply vessels that fed the Armada's war machine burned one by one. Without fuel, without ammunition, without parts, the Council fleet would be crippled, even if they survived the battle. Hours passed. The battle raged across the entire solar system. Near Mars, a human destroyer rammed a Council cruiser rather than let it escape. Around Jupiter, a Council squadron managed to destroy a human carrier, but lost 8 ships in the process. The void filled with debris and bodies. Admiral Taiyang coordinated the battle from the Indomitable, his flagship driving deep into the Council formation. He was 70 years old and had spent his entire life preparing for this day. Every simulation, every war game, every training exercise had led to this moment. He knew the Council would come with overwhelming force. He knew they would expect an easy victory, and he knew exactly how to punish them for their arrogance. 3rd Fleet, execute flanking maneuver Gamma. 7th Fleet, cover their advance. All carriers, launch fighters. I want every Council ship bleeding before they figure out what's happening. The human fleet moved like a living thing, flowing around enemy positions, striking where the Council was weak, retreating when they pushed back. It was beautiful and terrible, a dance of death choreographed by a master. 6 hours into the battle, Rethik finally gave the order he never thought he would give. All ships, retreat. Fall back to Rally Point Delta. We must regroup. The Council fleet tried to disengage, but human ships pursued them like sharks smelling blood. By the time the survivors managed to jump away to safety, 40% of the Galactic Armada had been destroyed. 4,000 ships, reduced to drifting wreckage and fading energy signatures dot in the aftermath. The human fleet regrouped near Earth. They had lost ships too. Nearly 300 vessels destroyed. Thousands of crew members dead. But they had won. Against impossible odds, against the combined might of the galaxy, humanity had won. Admiral Taiyang stood on his bridge, looking at the damage reports. His face was tired, but his eyes burned with fierce pride. Around him, his crew worked to coordinate rescue operations and salvage what they could from the battlefield. "Send a message to Earth," Taiyang said quietly. "Tell them the solar system is secure. Tell them humanity stands." Captain Jiwan brought her carrier back to dock at Luna Station. As she stepped off her ship, she saw the exhausted faces of her crew. They had fought like demons. They had done the impossible. She gathered them together in the hangar bay. She gathered them together in the hangar bay. "You all knew this day might come," she told them. "You trained for it. You prepared for it. And when it came, you didn't hesitate. The Council thought we were weak. They thought we would break. Today, we showed them what humans are really made of. Remember this day. Remember what we did here. The galaxy will never underestimate us again." In the council chambers, far across the galaxy, representatives watched the battle reports in stunned silence. 40% losses. The Armada broken. Rethik's undefeated record shattered. And worst of all, the realization that humanity was far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The council chamber was no longer peaceful. Representatives shouted at each other in dozens of languages. Accusations flew like weapons. The carefully maintained order of 10,000 years crumbled in the face of humanity's impossible victory. Rethik stood before them all. His armor scorched from battle, his pride wounded deeper than any physical injury. This was a temporary setback, he insisted, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We still outnumber them. We still have resources they cannot match. Give me reinforcements and I will crush them." A flowing mass of tentacles and eyes, representative of the Quillari species, rippled with agitation. "You said this would be easy. You said humans were primitives playing with tools they didn't understand. Now 40% of our fleet is debris floating in their star system." "They got lucky," Rethik said, but even he didn't believe it anymore. "They had prepared traps. They won't fool us again, won't they?" The crystalline speaker pulsed with angry red light. "We know nothing about their true capabilities. What else are they hiding? What other weapons do they possess? How many more of our ships must we sacrifice?" The chamber erupted in argument again. Some species demanded immediate reinforcements and total war. Others suggested opening peace negotiations. A few spoke quietly about withdrawing from the Council entirely if the war continued, while the Council argued, "Humanity acted." Commander Deho stood in the briefing room of the human carrier Relentless, addressing 50 ship captains through holographic projection. He was young for his rank, only 35, but he had proven himself brilliant in unconventional warfare. His sharp mind had helped design the tactics that won the Battle of Seoul. "The Council expects us to defend our territory," Deho said, gesturing at a star map that filled the room. "They think we'll stay in our systems and wait for them to come at us again. We're not going to do that. We're taking the war to them." The captains leaned forward, studying the map. Red markers indicated Council military installations scattered across 100 systems. Shipyards, supply depots, communication hubs, training facilities. This is the Human Expeditionary Force, the Hill continued. 50 ships. Our mission is not to conquer territory. We're not going to hold ground. We're going to hit them fast, break things, and disappear before they can respond. We'll destroy their ability to make war. We'll cut their supply lines. We'll make them afraid to leave their homeworlds. A captain raised her hand. What about civilian casualties? Some of these targets are near population centers. We strike only military targets, Deho said firmly. We're not terrorists. We're not monsters. We're showing the galaxy that humanity can fight with precision and honor. But make no mistake, we will be ruthless with our military objectives. The campaign began 3 days later. Human ships appeared in the Velotrix system, destroyed a council shipyard in 20 minutes, and vanished before defensive forces could mobilize. The next day, a communication relay station in the Hormuth sector went silent. Its equipment melted to slag by human plasma weapons. Supply convoys began disappearing. Their automated distress signals cut off mid-transmission. The Council had thousands of systems to defend. Humanity only needed to attack one at a time. It was guerrilla warfare on an interstellar scale, and the Council had no defense against it on Earth. Ambassador Minji had returned home after the Council's declaration of war. Now she worked with President Si-Yoon in the Crisis Command Center, a facility buried 3 kilometers beneath the planet's surface. The president was a calm woman in her 60s who had led Earth through first contact and the difficult decades of integration into galactic society. The military campaign is going well, Si-Yoon said, studying reports from the front lines. But we need to win hearts and minds too. The Council speaks for 23 species. We need to break that unity. Minji nodded. She had already prepared a message, one that would be broadcast to every system in the galaxy. We send it through every channel we can access. We tell the truth about what happened. We show them that we only wanted peace, that the Council forced this war on us. The message went out the next day. It showed the recording from the Council chamber, Minji's desperate pleas for peace, Vrethic's contemptuous dismissal. It showed the vote, 23 species unanimous in their declaration of war. Then it showed the Battle of Sol, the Council fleet destroyed by a species fighting for survival. The final words appeared in every galactic language. Humanity wanted peace. The Council chose war. We fight only to defend ourselves. Any species that declares neutrality will be left in peace. Stand aside or stand with the Council. Choose wisely. The response was immediate. 3 minor species declared neutrality within days. Their representatives in the Council resigned, refusing to participate in what they now called an unjust war. 2 more species began secret communications with human diplomats, offering intelligence in exchange for guarantees of safety. The galaxy was fracturing in the shadows of this political chaos. Something even more terrifying was about to be revealed. Dr. Hyen stood in the control center of the Ouroboros facility, a space station hidden in a dead system that appeared on no maps. Around her, machines hummed with power that made reality itself bend and twist. Project Ouroboros was humanity's greatest secret. Based on theoretical physics that most galactic species considered impossible, it manipulated time itself. Not time travel that remained beyond reach, but localized temporal fields, areas where time could be sped up or slowed down at will. Hyen had spent 20 years perfecting the technology. Now she was about to demonstrate it to the galaxy. The target was a Council shipyard in the Brecken system, a massive facility that produced 50 warships per year. Council forces guarded it heavily after the recent human attacks. They thought it was safe. Hyen activated the Ouroboros device. Across space, invisible energy reached out and wrapped around the shipyard. Inside the temporal field, time began to accelerate. 1 second outside became 1 hour inside. 1 minute became days. 1 hour became years. The shipyard aged centuries in minutes. Metal corroded. Systems failed. The entire structure crumbled to rust and dust. When the temporal field collapsed, nothing remained but debris. The thousands of workers inside had lived and died entire lifetimes in the span of an afternoon. Hyen felt sick watching the results. She had not wanted to create such a weapon, but the Council had left humanity no choice. Sometimes survival required terrible things. The recording of the shipyard's destruction was sent to the Council with a simple message: humanity can erase you from time itself. End this war. The galaxy reeled in shock. Species that had been considering joining the war against humanity suddenly reconsidered. Philosophers debated whether such a weapon was even morally acceptable. Religious leaders called it an abomination against the natural order. But most importantly, the Council's member species began to fear. If humanity could do this to a shipyard, what could they do to a planet? To a star system? To an entire civilization? In the Council chambers, Vrethik demanded more ships, more weapons, more soldiers. We must strike back. We must show them that we are not afraid. But fewer and fewer representatives agreed with him. The Qulari declared they would send no more ships. The Fentari withdrew their fleet entirely. One by one, the Council's united front crumbled. Meanwhile, deep in Council space, a human woman named Yuna worked in the Military Intelligence Division. She had defected from humanity 5 years ago, believing that the Council represented order and peace while humans represented chaos. She had helped plan strategies against human expansion. She had advised Vrethik on human psychology and tactics, but watching the war unfold, seeing the Council's brutality and humanity's desperate fight for survival, she began to question everything she had believed. The Council had lied about humanity. They had not been seeking peace. They had been planning genocide, trying to eliminate a species they saw as a threat to their power. Yuna began stealing classified files, Council battle plans, ship movements, intelligence reports. She encrypted them and sent them to human contacts through channels she hoped were secure. Every transmission was a risk. If caught, she would be executed as a traitor, but she could not stand by and let her own species be destroyed for refusing to bow to alien authority. In his office on the flagship, Admiral Taiyang received Yuna's intelligence reports and felt a grim satisfaction. The Council was falling apart from within. Their unity was broken. Their military was in disarray. The war was far from over, but humanity had seized the initiative. He opened a communication channel to all human forces. Keep pushing. Keep fighting. Every day we survive is a day closer to victory. The galaxy wanted to crush us. Instead, we're teaching them to fear us. Hold the line. Make them regret ever declaring war on humanity. Across human space and deep into Council territory, soldiers and sailors heard those words and found new strength. They were fighting not just for survival, but for the right to exist as free people. They were proving that humanity could stand against the entire galaxy and not break. The Council had started this war thinking it would be easy. Now they were learning the hard truth. Humanity was small. Humanity was young. But humanity was relentless. And in a long war, relentlessness mattered more than size or age. 80 months had passed since the Council declared war on humanity. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. What was supposed to be a quick enforcement action had become a grinding conflict that drained resources and shattered alliances. The Council had lost control of 12 systems, not to human occupation, but to their own internal collapse. Without the military might to enforce unity, member species began questioning why they followed Council orders at all. Trade routes collapsed. Ancient treaties dissolved. The 10,000-year-old order was crumbling. Captain Juno commanded a human stealth corvette named Shadow Dancer. His mission was reconnaissance, slipping through Council space to gather intelligence on military movements and political developments. He was good at his job. Very good. In 18 months, he had never been detected. Today, his mission took him to a remote research station orbiting a dead planet in the Kethril system. Intelligence suggested the Council was developing new weapons here, desperate attempts to counter human technology. Junho's orders were simple: observe, record, and leave. The station looked ordinary from the outside. A standard research facility, lightly defended, nothing remarkable. But Junho's sensors detected unusual energy signatures coming from deep inside the structure. Something powerful was being built or tested there. "Take us in closer," Junho ordered his pilot. "I want detailed scans of that facility." The Shadow Dancer glided silently toward the station, its stealth systems making it invisible to the automated defenses. Junho's sensor officer worked his console, peeling back layers of the station's security to see what lay inside. What they found made Junho's blood run cold. "Sir," the sensor officer said, his voice shaking, "you need to see this." The displays showed classified files recovered through electronic infiltration. Plans for human extinction. The Council had not simply wanted to contain humanity. They had been planning to exterminate every human in the galaxy. The war declaration was just the excuse they needed. The files went back years to shortly after first contact. Analysis of human biology, looking for weaknesses. Studies of human psychology, searching for ways to break morale. Plans for bioweapons that would target human DNA specifically. Orders to sterilize Earth's biosphere if humans resisted. Council authority. The Council had seen humanity as an evolutionary rival. A species that learned too quickly, adapted too efficiently, threatened the established order just by existing. The other species had taken thousands of years to reach their current level. Humanity had done it in centuries. If left unchecked, the Council's analysis predicted humans would surpass every other species within a few generations. So they had decided to eliminate the threat before it could fully emerge. The war was not about territory or resources or even politics. It was survival. The Council feared that humanity would eventually make them obsolete, so they tried to kill humanity first. "Copy everything?" Junho ordered. "Every file, every analysis, every plan. Then we get out of here and get this information to Admiral Taiyang immediately." The Shadow Dancer extracted itself from the station's network and slipped away into deep space. Behind them, Council security systems detected the breach far too late. By the time alarms sounded, the human ship was already gone. Admiral Taiyang received Junho's report in his quarters aboard the Indomitable. He read through the files 3 times, his face growing darker with each reading. He had suspected the Council's motives were not what they claimed, but this was worse than he imagined. This was not war. This was attempted genocide. He called an emergency meeting of the human high command. President Su-Yun appeared via hologram from Earth, along with Ambassador Minji and the heads of all major military and intelligence services. They reviewed the evidence together in grim silence. "This changes everything," Su-Yun said finally. "The galaxy needs to see this. They need to know what the Council really is." "They'll claim it's propaganda," Minji warned. "They'll say we fabricated these files to justify our aggression. Then we verify it," Taiyang said. "We send the raw data to independent analysts. We let neutral species examine the evidence. We make it impossible to deny." The decision was made. The evidence would be released to the entire galaxy. Not as propaganda, not as an accusation, but as documentation. The truth lay bare for everyone to see. The broadcast went out 3 days later. It reached every system, every species, every world that had communication technology. It showed the Council's plans in detail. The bioweapons research, the extermination protocols, the analysis that called humanity a threat that must be eliminated. The galaxy exploded in reaction. 4 species immediately withdrew from the Council in disgust. Their representatives issued statements condemning the attempted genocide. 3 more species, while remaining technically neutral, opened secret channels to humanity, offering assistance. They shared intelligence, provided safe harbor to human ships, and quietly sabotaged Council military operations in their territory. On the Council homeworlds, protests erupted. Citizens who had believed they were fighting a just war to maintain peace now realized they had been lied to. Their leaders had tried to commit genocide. The political fallout was immediate and devastating. Governments fell. Leaders resigned or were forced out by angry populations. The Council itself fractured. What had been 23 united voices became a dozen arguing factions. Some wanted to continue the war. Others demanded immediate peace negotiations. A few called for the Council's complete dissolution. Vrethik watched his coalition collapse and felt rage consume him. He had dedicated his life to the Council. He had believed in its mission. Now he was being blamed for following orders, for doing what his superiors had told him was necessary. No, he said to the few officers who still supported him, "We will not surrender. We will not negotiate. We gather what remains of the fleet. We strike at Earth itself. If we cannot have peace, we will have vengeance." His subordinates protested. They had perhaps 5,000 ships remaining, maybe less. Human defenses were strong. It would be suicide. Then we die destroying the enemy, Vrethik snarled. Better that than living in a galaxy where humans dictate terms to us. Send out the call. Every ship that can still fight meets at the rally point. We end this war with one final strike. While Vrethik prepared his suicide fleet, Dr. Hyan made final adjustments to the Ouroboros network. She had not been idle during the past months. Additional temporal stations had been built and hidden throughout Council space, each one small enough to avoid detection, but powerful enough to project temporal fields across vast distances. She opened a communication channel to Admiral Taiyang. "The network is ready. All stations are online and synchronized. We can cage every major Council world simultaneously." Taiyang looked at the strategic display showing the positions of Hyan's hidden stations. So much power. The ability to freeze entire civilizations in time, to make them wait while the rest of the galaxy moved forward without them. It was a terrifying weapon. "We use it only as a last resort," Taiyang said. "Only if they force our hand." "Understood, Admiral. But we need to be ready. If Vrethik launches his final attack, we may need to stop him permanently." Taiyang nodded. Intelligence reports confirmed Vrethik was gathering ships for a massive assault. The numbers varied, but estimates suggested anywhere from 4,000 to 6,000 vessels. It would be the largest fleet ever assembled for a single battle. And they were all heading for Earth. President Su Yun addressed the people of Earth in a broadcast that was transmitted across all human colonies. She stood in front of the shattered remains of the old United Nations building, a monument now to the Earth before humanity reached the stars. "My fellow humans," she said, her voice calm despite the stakes. "The Council is coming. They're bringing everything they have left in one final attempt to break us. They want to destroy our homeworld. They want to make us afraid." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "They don't understand that we stopped being afraid a long time ago. We faced extinction before. We've survived ice ages and plagues and wars. We've climbed from caves to reach the stars. And we've never given up. Not once. Not ever. So let them come. Let them bring their fleet. We'll be waiting. And we'll show them one last time what happens when you declare war on humanity. We don't break. We don't surrender. We win. Across Earth and its colonies, humans prepared for the final battle. Ships were armed and positioned. Defense platforms powered up. Soldiers took their positions. Scientists made final adjustments to weapons and systems. Everyone knew what was coming. Everyone knew what it would cost, but they were ready. Humanity had been preparing for this moment since the day they looked up at the stars and decided to reach for them. They had survived by being stubborn and clever and willing to do whatever it took to live one more day. The Council wanted to end humanity. They were about to learn that humanity was not so easily ended. Admiral Taiyang stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, surrounded by his officers, looking at the tactical displays. Somewhere out there, Rethik was coming with his suicide fleet. It would be the biggest battle humanity had ever fought. Win or lose, the galaxy would remember what happened next. All ships report ready status, his communications officer said. Taeyang nodded. Send a message to the fleet. Tell them this is it. The Council's suicide fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. 5,000 ships strong, representing the last military might of a crumbling empire. They came in perfect formation, weapons charged, engines burning bright against the darkness of space. Rethik stood on his command bridge, mandibles clicking with grim satisfaction. This would be his final battle. Either he would destroy humanity's homeworld, or he would die trying. All ships, he broadcast across the fleet. Today we avenge our fallen. Today we show the galaxy that the Council does not surrender. Target Earth. Burn it to ashes. The fleet began its advance toward the inner system. Sensors showed human ships already waiting near the orbit of Jupiter. Not as many as Rethik had expected. Perhaps 3,000 vessels. The humans were outnumbered. Good. They would pay for their defiance with their homeworld's destruction. But as the Council fleet pushed deeper into the system, something appeared on their sensors that made Rethik pause. A massive structure was emerging from behind Jupiter's shadow. It was enormous, larger than any ship he had ever seen. A construct the size of a small moon, covered in weapons and armor and energy shields that distorted space around it. What is that? One of his officers whispered. Engineer Minho stood in the control center of the Bastion. Humanity's greatest engineering achievement. The mobile fortress had been built in secret over the past 18 months, constructed from materials salvaged from destroyed Council ships and combined with human innovation. It represented everything humanity had learned about warfare in this conflict, compressed into one overwhelming weapon. All systems online, Minho reported to the bridge crew. Power output at maximum. Weapons charged. Defensive shields holding steady. The Bastion is ready for combat. The fortress began to move, its massive engines pushing it toward the advancing Council fleet. It was not fast, but it did not need to be. It was a statement, a warning, a promise that humanity would not be defeated. Admiral Taiyang watched from the Indomitable as the Bastion took its position at the front of the human fleet. Around him, his officers worked their stations with practiced efficiency. This was the moment they had all been preparing for. The final confrontation. All ships, begin attack pattern Omega, Taiyang ordered. The Bastion will break their formation. We exploit the gaps. Target their command ships first. If we cut off Rethik's control, the fleet will fall apart. The human fleet surged forward to meet the Council's advance. Space filled with weapons fire as the two forces collided. Energy beams lanced across the void. Missiles streaked between ships. Railgun rounds traveled at impossible speeds, punching through armor and shields. But the Bastion was something the Council had never faced before. Its weapons fired continuously, each shot destroying a council ship or crippling it beyond repair. Its shields absorbed incoming fire that would have vaporized normal vessels. It pushed through the council formation like a blade through flesh, leaving destruction in its wake. Rethik watched in growing horror as his fleet died around the fortress. Nothing they threw at it seemed to matter. Their best weapons barely scratched its shields. Meanwhile, it cut through them with casual efficiency. In the first hour of battle, the Council lost 1,000 ships. In the second hour, another 1,000. All ships, concentrate fire on that fortress. Rethik ordered desperately. Everything we have. Destroy it. 2,000 council ships turned their weapons on the bastion simultaneously. Energy that could crack planets hammered into its shields. For a moment, the shields flickered. The fortress shuddered under the assault. Inside, Minho and his team worked frantically to redistribute power and maintain defensive systems. Shields at 60%, one of the engineers reported. If they keep this up, we'll break. Then we don't give them the chance, Minho said. He opened a channel to the weapons control. Fire everything. Show them what this thing can really do. The Bastion unleashed its full arsenal. Dozens of weapon systems fired at once. The space around the fortress lit up with destruction. Council ships disintegrated by the hundreds. The concentrated fire broke apart. Their formations shattered. Their attack run ruined. The battle raged for 6 hours. Ships burned and exploded. Debris filled the void. Thousands died on both sides. But slowly, inevitably, the Council fleet was being destroyed. They were outnumbered by superior technology and better tactics. The Bastion was the hammer that broke them, but the human fleet was the blade that finished them. Rethik's flagship was damaged, its engines failing, its weapons depleted. Around him, his bridge crew worked to keep the ship functional. But it was not enough. They were losing. Everything he had fought for was falling apart. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," his communications officer said. "It's from the humans." "Put it through," Rethik said. Tired Admiral Taiyang's face appeared on the screen. The human looked older than Rethik remembered, tired from months of war. But his eyes were still sharp. "Supreme Commander Rethik, your fleet is broken. Your ships are destroyed. This battle is over. Surrender now, and we will spare your remaining forces." "Never," Rethik said. "I will die before I surrender to humans." "Then you'll die," Taiyang said simply. "But your people don't have to. The war is over, Rethik. You've lost. Accept it and save the lives you have left." Before Rethik could respond, alarms screamed across every council ship. Something was happening across their entire empire. Reports flooded in from homeworlds and colonies. Temporal fields were appearing around major population centers. Time itself was being manipulated. Dr. Hyan had activated the full Ouroboros network. Every council world was now frozen in temporal bubbles. Not destroyed, not harmed, but trapped. Time inside the bubbles moved at a fraction of normal speed. Minutes outside became hours inside. Days became years. The entire council civilization was being held hostage. Taiyang's voice came through again, cold and final. "We have your worlds, Rethik. All of them. Surrender now, or they stay frozen forever. Your choice." Rethik looked at his screen, showing the temporal fields around his homeworld. His family was down there. His people. They would grow old and die while the galaxy moved on without them. Unless he ended this, he closed his eyes. "I surrender." The Council fleet surrenders. End this war. The Battle of Seoul ended with the Council's unconditional surrender. Of the 5,000 ships that came to destroy Earth, less than 1,000 survived. The human fleet gathered the survivors and took them prisoner, not as slaves or victims, but as defeated soldiers who would be treated with dignity. The Council had denied to others. Vrethic's flagship was boarded by human marines. They found him on his bridge, alone, his armor scarred and damaged. Captain G1 led the boarding team. She looked at the massive insectoid with something that might have been pity. "It's over," she said quietly. "You fought well, but you were on the wrong side." "Was I?" Vrethic asked. "Or were my leaders?" "I believed I was protecting the galaxy. I believed humans were the threat. I was wrong." "You were following orders," G1 said. "I understand that. But you still have to answer for what you did." Vrethic nodded. "I know. I will face whatever judgment comes." With the war over, Ambassador Minji returned to the reformed council chambers. But it was not the same place she had left. The old council had dissolved. In its place, a new galactic assembly was forming. Every species had equal representation now. No more hierarchies. No more designated places. Every voice mattered equally. Minji stood before the assembly, no longer as a supplicant, but as an equal. "The war has ended," she said. "But the peace is just beginning. We must build something new. Something better. A galaxy where no species is judged by their age or their power, but by their character and their choices." President Soo-hyun addressed humanity from Earth. The temporal fields around council worlds had been released. Those civilizations had lost time, but they were alive. Some were angry. Some were grateful. All were changed. "We won this war," Soo-hyun told her people. "But we did not win by being the strongest. We won by being willing to do whatever it took to survive. Now we must win the peace. We must show the galaxy that humanity is not just good at war. We must prove we can build as well as we can fight." Dr. Hyen converted her Ouroboros technology to peaceful purposes. Medical stasis fields that could freeze injuries until help arrived. Archaeological preservation systems that could protect ancient sites from decay. Deep space exploration. Vessels that could use time dilation to travel distances that would otherwise take lifetimes. 5 years passed. The galaxy healed slowly from the wounds of war. The Galactic Assembly grew stronger, guided by principles of equality and cooperation rather than hierarchy and control. Human colonies spread further, but now they did so with the blessing and cooperation of other species. Captain G1 commanded the first joint species exploration fleet. Her crew included humans, but also Quillari scientists, Fentari engineers, and representatives from a dozen other civilizations. Together, they ventured beyond known space, seeking new worlds and new knowledge. "This is what it should have been from the start," G1 said to her first officer, a Quillari named Thelix. "Not war, not conquest, just exploration and cooperation." "Agreed," Thelix rippled. "Though I admit, your species makes for excellent warriors. I'm glad we're now allies rather than enemies."